What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Bitchuation Room. It's a podcast, it's a live stream, it's a Twitch stream, it's I said podcast, so what isn't it? You know, you can put it on jewelry and it will really scrub it clean. Just set it in the Bitchuation Room, an old pair of earrings, and you take it out and it's just brand new. I mean, that really, what can this show not do? I am your host, Francesca Fiorentini. So good to have you here. If you are listening as a podcast, make sure to give us 5 stars right now. Right now. Just pause. 5 stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And resume. There you go. If you're here on YouTube, make sure to like and share this stream right now. If you're on Twitch, sup. Thank you so much for having me as part of your programming. We have such a good show today. Hey, remember how everything we were told about the economy turned out to be wrong? And turns out that all the metrics that capitalists and neoliberals use to measure a healthy society are also wrong. Yeah. And then the pandemic just proved it all wrong. And it seemed like we had to support workers instead of the 1%. That is what we're going to talk about today with economist and journalist Doug Henwood, who is waiting in the wings. He's going to be here. I'm excited to learn from him, to listen to him, to get his assessment about what's going on with Striketober, as well as Nato Green, comedian and labor organizer, is also here, and he knows a thing or two about the labor movement. So I want to know, is this the beginning of a new thing, a new wave? Is it, how can we make sure that it is the beginning of a new labor movement and a new wave of activism? So tuck in. Super excited to have you guys once again. And remember, this show is completely not brought to you by websites where you can like post job postings that rhyme with like MIP remuter. I could have done that better, but you know what I'm saying? This website, this podcast is totally 100% grassroots. I don't have sponsors. I'm not part of any kind of network. I wish I was. I'm shopping around. I'm looking for my forever home, my soulmate. But right now, you guys are the soulmate of the Bitchuation Room. That's right. Through your tips, through your Patreon subscription. So you can tip us TBR-live on Venmo, TBR live on Cash App, but mostly, if you become a patron of this show at patreon.com/Bitchuation Room, my God, not only do you get access to things like 20% off merch, access to our monthly AMAs, you also get weekly access to 15 additional minutes, a bonus story. We call it the bonus bish. So if you guys haven't become a patron yet to hear all the stories we've done and talked about, that's on you. That's your loss. $5 a month, $2 a month, $10 a month gets you a shout out. And like I said, $20 a month gets you access to those monthly AMAs, which I know I have to do once very, very soon. But please send me your questions. Send them in to bitchuation@gmail.com or the Patreon website. Also, we have merch. I said we've got merch. It's super cute. We got the logo shirt. We got Frantifa shirts. They come in gray and white. We've got tote bags. We've got stickers. We've got, oh my God, it's just amazing. So I've been asking for photos of you all in your swag, and I haven't seen any. So here is a call out. If you post a photo of yourself with the hashtag Frantifa swag on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, hashtag Frantifa swag, it will automatically enter you to win a gift and a shout out. Okay. So by the end of November, you got a month. All right. I want to see those photos. I want to see your Frantifa swag, Frantifa strong. Don't make me sell little bracelets like Lance Armstrong. I will do that. But yes, you will get potentially get a gift. I'm going to make it a good gift. It's going to have a few things, but I'm going to like maybe some bubble bath, but it'll be good. Or if you don't like whatever, you know what I'm saying? It'll be good. And a special shout out. So do that. Tag me, tag hashtag Frantifa swag with you and your merch. And also I wanted to say, God damn it, I don't have the banner. There's always something I forget to do, but I am so excited because I have just launched a new show on the TYT Twitch network. So that's twitch.tv/TYT every Wednesday, 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern for 2 hours right before TYT's main show that they do obviously every single day. This is Wednesdays. It's the Twitchuation Room. That's right. The Twitchuation Room. Yes, it's every relation to this show, The Bitchuation Room. And yes, it is a 7-dimensional marketing ploy to get more people to join the Frantifa and come on over and listen to The Bitchuation Room. But we had so much fun last time. I talked about Squid Game. I talked a little bit more about Chappelle because everyone wants to talk about Chappelle. And I'm excited to do that. Just super relaxed, off the cuff. So join me there every Wednesday, 1 o'clock, 4 p.m. Eastern. Twitch.tv/TYT. And with that, let's get into this week and what is grinding your gears, what's crawled up your pants and died. What are you bitching about? Okay, so this has been a week of wheelings and dealings between senators. You got Kyrsten Sinema, you got Joe Manchin. They're all haggling. One of them doesn't want to tax the wealthy anymore. The other one doesn't want any more social services for his very impoverished state. We're trying to fit a bunch of round pegs into square holes. You got Pramila Jayapal, leader of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, saying we're definitely going to get this done. You got Joe Biden going on national television being like, Kyrsten Sinema, she's smart as a devil. Like, bro, don't say that. So the question is, what's going to happen with this Build Back Better Act, the social infrastructure plan, basically the hugely transformative plan that included everything from free college tuition, universal pre-K, transformative climate plans, home care assistance, extended child tax credits, all kinds of things that would make it easier for families, working families in this country to get by, right? We know that unemployment benefits have ended, et cetera. And we're at a dead end, actually. And what's happening now, if you haven't been following, is that what was once a $6 trillion plan has now been was reduced then to $3 trillion and has now been reduced to about $1.9 trillion. The actual new spending in that is a lot less. And this is, again, over 10 years, right? This is half a war in Afghanistan, okay? Which was, I believe, something like $3 trillion. So think about that, right? So it's getting whittled and whittled down. Looks like free college, community college tuition is out. It looks like the child tax credit will only be extended for 1 year. It looks like one of the main pieces of the climate proposals, which is called the Clean Energy Payment Program, which will help cut emissions by 50% by 2030, which is on track to be within the Paris Climate Agreement, within this rapidly decarbonizing plan that we need to enact if we have a chance of survival on this effing planet. It looks like that's going to be stripped. So it's a big question, right? What is left? Universal pre-K seems like it's left. Maybe that'll be the only thing that'll be left. And I guess I'm just so tired. I think I'm bitching about the fact that I'm tired of getting mad at senators who are literally upholding an arcane minority rule, white supremacist, unrepresentative body of government in the so-called best democracy on earth. Like, I don't expect shit from them. I'm sorry. I'm not holding my breath for any of these fools. And I feel this week the limitations of electoral politics and electoralism. I feel the limitations of working our asses off to get Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff elected in Georgia, only to have them be hamstrung by these MFers who want to cash in on with their coal money, right? With Kyrsten Sinema that wants to have big dollar donor and fundraisers. That's what they do. That's what senators do, man. Expecting them not to be corrupt is the weird part. And so I'm mad that, like, actually, you know, for all the sort of ironic talk about, guillotine this, guillotine that, we love to talk about it. It's our one way, leftists, our one way to feel like less sad is to be like, you know, gallows humor, essentially. But you're pushing people to the brink here. If we do not enact something like the Build Back Better Act in the way that it was proposed, you push people to the brink. What do you want? How much more do you want to squeeze working Americans? How much, until you get to the point where it's like, oh yeah, man, you're going to have a revolution on your hands. Like, people will start rising up, and they are going, and they are. And I sure as shit hope that we do. Because it is, again, we can only wait for the crumbs to fall from the table for so long. We can only bat our eyes in the face of Joe Manchin for so long before we actually understand our entire political system is rife with money and corporate donors. It's completely unequal. It is completely rigged, not in our favor. We got to do way more. Change the entire thing. Screw the Senate. Change the Senate, expand the courts. It's time. We got a lot more coming. Anyway, with that, let's bring in for the hour my good friend, union organizer, and comedian, Mr. Nato Green. What up, dude?
Hey, cheers.
Cheers. I need a drink. How you doing, Nato? What are you bitching about this fine Sunday evening?
Well, Francesca, I am bitching about my own temper. This weekend, in a 24-hour period, I had 2 screaming confrontations with strangers in public.
Oh, no.
And they were misbehaving. They were being bad. But what I'm wrestling with is, where is the line for me as a middle-aged, cisgendered, heterosexual white man between like being a male Karen busybody and like not being a silent bystander in the face of injustice, as our friend Jackie Cation says, getting in the way of bad behavior. Because so just briefly, the 2 incidents were, as you know. I think I've told you. I don't know if I've talked about it on the show. Maybe I did. I've been doing some personal training.
Yes. You like to mention that a lot.
Yeah. So Nato Green's getting swole. And I was with my personal trainer in the park, and there were a lot of dogs in the park. Not a dog park, but there were a lot of dogs.
This is the second story that starts with, I was with my personal trainer in the park. Maybe
trainer.
The third or fourth you've told on this podcast.
So anyway, what's relevant for the purposes of the story is my personal trainer was the only black dude in the park. And a giant pit bull got off leash, jumped on me, jumped on another lady, was scaring people. And the white lady who owned the dog was like, didn't apologize or check in with it, see if anybody's okay. She was like, oh, it just reacted that way because it saw that guy as a threat. And
what?
And I like lost my shit, and immediately like my dad voice came out, and I was like, what is wrong with you? Who raised you? The appropriate response in this situation is to say, I'm sorry, are you okay? So like,
but you said it kind of like that.
Oh yeah. But you know how you know that thing where people will like, something will happen to somebody in a situation, and they'll be like, what I would have said was
right,
and then they'll tell you that story. I am very much the person who will say the thing and make it weird in public just because I want to get the good story out of it.
Yeah. Oh no, I've been there when you've done that, but that's so fucked up. I'm sorry. Yeah. I would have lost my shit.
Right. So it's like, I feel like I was justified, but also like I a little bit scared myself by how mad I got. Then, not 24 hours later, I was taking my kids to get flu shots. We were at Kaiser Hospital. The line was down the street, out the front door, and there was a guy standing at the entrance with a speaker blasting anti-vaccine propaganda, just at people waiting in line for medical treatment. And
like out of a bullhorn? I thought you were going to say music, but no, it was...
No, it was like a Bluetooth speaker that was connected to his phone.
Oh, God.
And so I
just
took
like Dan Bongino going like, if masks worked,
Right. So like, so I took his picture, and then he like came at me and, jumped in my face and was, swearing at me and stuff. And I realized, and I am so not this person, that like I was ready to fight. And maybe because I've been working out too much and I'm a little bit hopped up on feeling my triceps ripple on the daily, but
Oh
like
wow.
it took me like a solid 45 minutes for my fist to unclench, and I was like, okay, so like, what does it mean about me that I may be about to get in my first fisticuffs at, as an adult at 46? And then again, like I was right. He was misbehaving, and Kaiser wasn't doing anything about it, but also like I went into a blind rage. And so I was like, partly I just feel like everything is broken. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
the system is unraveling. Like I have this pent up anxiety just like everybody else. And for me, it's coming out because it's America and I'm not allowed to ever see a therapist. It's coming out in me just like, channeling all of my pent up rage and frustration into, strangers in public who are legitimately misbehaving and deserve it, but like may not,
No, that's that lib in you though. Here's my thing. I feel like Karens and Kevins and crazy racists and anti-vaxxers have been taking up so much of the public space lately that your reactions were completely justified. And it's like, yeah, man, we all have enjoyed watching some racists get their ass beat. I'm sorry, it's true. So
Oh
I
yeah.
would say keep getting swole, Daddy Nato,
Mm-hmm.
and take him down next time. And no, I don't advocate violence, and I would love to get a sponsor one day on this show, but if NATO got to cut a bitch, so be it.
Can you imagine the story of like, oh yeah, I fought a guy in front of my children in the lobby of Kaiser Permanente? Like,
It would not be the first time that someone fought a guy in front of the Kaiser Permanente in front of their kids. Just saying.
yeah, right.
I want to fight every time I'm on hold with Kaiser Permanente, honestly. That's a great unraveling of the social fabric. NATO Green bringing it to you from the streets live. We got to move on. So much happened this week. We're going to talk about two of my favorite stories. But briefly, and I didn't have a lot of time to write this, so forgive all the bad jokes, but this was the week Steve Bannon was held in contempt of court for defying a subpoena about the January 6th attack, which he apparently referred to as trying to kill the Biden administration in the cradle, something his mom really should have considered. There were more revelations that Facebook missed weeks of warning signs about the January 6th attack. Guess it was too busy selling tactical gear and like flex cuffs in the right-hand column. Israel classified 6 human rights organizations as terrorist groups, but please tell me more about the only democracy in the Middle East. And finally, Paris Hilton spoke on The Hill this week about the abuse she endured in her time at a facility for troubled teens, also known as the E Network. For everything else, this is the week where. Okay, so this was the week where Americans' so-called greatest alpha male launched a very beta website that was, to use their terminology, immediately cucked by trolls. That's right. Donald Trump's new media venture called Trump Media and Technology Group launched an early version of the site Truth Social, which is supposedly a safe space for people to lie publicly. What is Truth Social? How does it work? Well, it's basically like a Twitter, but for the far right. So let me explain. The site looks almost entirely like a Twitter clone. A user can post truths, which are like tweets, or retruths, which are retweets, which means if you untweet something, you would untruth it. There's also a news feed called the Truth Feed, a notification system so users can know who interacts with their truths. The social network's app store profile states. All right. Well, how does Trump Media and Technology Group, or TMTJ, how do they see themselves? This is part of their deck. You know that word deck. It's like, new PowerPoint for tech assholes. They call themselves a massive market opportunity, building a non-cancelable global community, also known as the easiest FBI honey trap for catching January 6th insurrectionists. Like, it's a little unfair. It's like super obvious. Okay, here's what else they say. This is another slide.
Geez.
This is a slide that says
It's like the short bus
galvanizing.
of Parlor.
Exactly. Galvanizing a conservative media universe. And here you have TMTJ in the middle, which is like the moon or the earth, and then a bunch of meteors heading right to it. Except it also kind of looked like sperm swimming to an egg. So you've got Newsmax and Rumble and Fox and OAN just sort of ready to inseminate.
Just on this slide, like my, being a nerdy man of my age, when I see TMTJ, my brain scans it as TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so then I need to pause a minute and be like, does this have to do with radioactive turtles raised in the sewer who are also ninjas fighting crime?
I love that. And also they even have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Plus.
Oh,
because everyone's got a plus. And guys, if you didn't know what this is, like, in case you're wondering, I don't know if you've heard of streaming platforms. They're this whole thing. I don't know if you've heard of Netflix or Disney Plus, but
or as my children call it, Hobo Max.
TMTJ Plus is like an on-demand streaming service that will provide news, Big Ten entertainment, exciting documentaries, sports programming, and more. Yeah, please. I'd like to see what sports deal. And then there's a picture of Trump handing out a giant trophy to a sumo wrestler. So I think maybe sumo is the answer to what kind of sports. They're trying to let you know that they're going to be bigger than Netflix, Disney Plus, and Hulu. So how did the rollout work? Well, there were immediate technical and security problems. People immediately snatched up VIP handles like, quote, Donald Trump and Mike Pence. The person who grabbed Donald J. Trump swiftly pinned a photo of a pig defecating, by the way, onto its own testicles on their profile. That site has been pulled offline, but at least other test versions have been circulating as well, suggesting striking technical vulnerabilities. Let me just say that photo of the pig defecating onto its testicles, that's good content right there. Like say what you will, but that's good shit.
I don't know how it's going to work for them because like they're going to need to recruit some number of like women and Jews to be on Truth so that they can give them death threats. Otherwise, like, what are they even going to be able to do?
Yeah, exactly. They have no reason to. It's very like, yes, Waiting for Godot, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern sort of. It's very existential. It is like if a right winger owns, but no one is around to hear it. Did they really own anybody kind of thing?
Sure.
It's
my favorite thing about the announcement is Trump said in a statement, we live in a world where the Taliban has a huge presence on Twitter, yet your favorite American president has been silenced. And look, I spent a fair amount of time on Twitter. You know how we all follow the Taliban, how like all of our favorite Twitter feeds are like, Taliban kebabs, like Taliban selfies. A lot of Taliban guys like doing this so that their chin looks right, so you don't see their double chin in their selfie.
Taliban in just like hot leggings and stuff that like make their booty look good. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of Taliban reels, like planking and whatever.
Oh my god, I love the Taliban plank feed. That they really hold it for a long time. It's crazy because like that. At once you're like, oh yeah, I guess the Taliban is still on Twitter. But also, what does that say about your presidency? The Taliban is following Twitter guidelines and your ass has to start a whole new network. Obviously, this entire thing is going to fail. I don't even know who's funding it. It is really just shiny 4chan. It is 4chan plus. This is like
Francesca, the answer to your question is in your question, which is the Taliban, like, Trump isn't on Twitter because he tried to overthrow the U.S. government. If he was on Twitter advocating, like, trying to overthrow other governments, he would still be on Twitter. You know what I mean? If Trump was on Twitter being like, I plan to invade Uruguay, Twitter wouldn't care. He'd still be on Twitter.
You're like, yeah, We still keep who's his name? God, who's the golpista from Venezuela who declared himself the president? I erased his name from my mind.
Isn't it Uribe?
No. From Venezuela. The
Guaido.
Guaido.
Juan Guaido. Yeah.
Guaido.
Thank you.
Oh God. Yeah, no, it is, but it's like they, I realize this is the last thing I'll say on this. You're never gonna get rid of hate speech. And in some ways, I am for democratization of the internet and breaking up big tech. So I'm like, good. Have your own awful platforms. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, I don't think it is good to, as is the case with 4chan and 8chan and whatever, like fucking live stream, mass murder. That's awful, right? And therefore, people should be held liable for some things that are on their platform. Anyway, there's a lot of discussion on this. In fact, they know that they could be held responsible for the things that people post on, the whatever the hell it is, Truth Social. So remember how Trump was like, Section 230, we need to abolish it. We need to get rid of it. Section 230 prevents platforms from being sued for the content that is on, that people publish on them. So they're saying the company is, quote, not responsible for any third-party content posted on, available through, and installed from the site, including its content accuracy, offensiveness, opinions, or reliability. And it has the right to censor you. So the site portrays itself as a refuge for free speech, uncensored by big tech, but it will ban any content that would disparage, tarnish, or otherwise harm us and or the site. So basically, you can't @Jack on Truth Social. You can't, no say no mean stuff. Hurt the fifis. Also, the funniest rule, and I don't know if this is true, but we'll see when it launches for realsies. Apparently, the site's terms of service list that some rules would hamstring Trump himself. The site will ban excessive use of capital letters, which is a hallmark of Trump's online screeds. And let me say, like, I might join it just for that. Because, like, I really hate all caps. Like, why are you yelling? Why? And Trump doesn't know how to capitalize. The only reason he all caps is because he's unclear what a proper noun is compared to a non-proper noun. He's completely clueless. You know how he, like, everything is like the capital nation, the capital sidewalk, my capital home. Like, he doesn't actually know how lowercase and capital letters work. Anyway, we got to move on, my friends. This is, I think, one of the juiciest and most interesting stories of the week. This was the week where Alec Baldwin went from impersonating Donald Trump to impersonating Dick Cheney. Thank you, Nato, for that juicy little joke. So on the set of filming The Western Rust, an assistant director handed Alec Baldwin, I was like, James Baldwin? No. Alec Baldwin a prop gun that, unbeknownst to him, was in fact...
I'm super in favor of armed James Baldwin, by the way.
Yeah. Side note, super in favor of that. Give him all the loaded guns. Okay, so he was handed this prop gun that was loaded with live rounds. I don't think you can call it a prop gun at that point. There were live rounds. The gun misfired and killed cinematographer Halna Hutchins and injured one other.
The director. The director of the film.
The director of the film, exactly. So this is from the LA Times. There's more information coming out because when it happened, I was like, obviously we all need to wait to understand what the hell went down. So the incident, Baldwin removed the gun from its holster once without incident, but the second time he did so, ammunition flew toward the trio around the monitor. The projectile whizzed by the camera operator, but penetrated Hutchins near her shoulder and then continued through to Souza, the director. Hutchins immediately fell to the ground as crew members applied pressure to her wound in an attempt to stop the bleeding. But it seems like the crew knew that this might actually happen and were warning their superiors about it. So 3 crew members who were present at the Bonanza Creek Ranch set on Saturday said they were particularly concerned about 2 accidental prop gun discharges. Baldwin's stunt double accidentally fired 2 rounds Saturday after being told that the gun was, quote, cold, lingo for a weapon that doesn't have any ammunition, including blanks. 2 crew members who witnessed the episode told the LA Times. In fact, one colleague was so alarmed by the prop gun misfires that he sent a text message to the unit production manager saying, quote, "We've had 3 accidental discharges. This is super unsafe," according to a copy of the message reviewed by the Times. So people knew about the gun. The new thing that just broke today was that the production manager had a complaint out against him for precisely cutting corners when it came to safety. And the other people who were unhappy with the cutting corners on that movie set were unionized crew members who that day walked off the job. So earlier, 6 hours before this shooting, members of IATSE who were working on that set walked off the job, and guess what? They were replaced by non-union members. So this is from, I want to actually just mention some of the reasons they were upset was that they were promised that they were going to be housed near to the actual set, but after the filming began, they were instead told they were required to make a 50-mile drive from Albuquerque each day rather than stay overnight in Santa Fe. That rankled crew members who worried they might have an accident after spending 12 to 13 hours on set. Remind you, a lot of these workers were driving themselves home. But so they walked off the set, and one of the producers ordered the union members to leave immediately and threatened to call security to remove them if they didn't leave voluntarily. So that's why they left. Quote, corners were being cut and they brought in non-union people so they could continue shooting.
And continue shooting they did.
A little too much shooting happened on set
while
they were shooting. So when this broke, I don't know, Nato, what you thought. My two initial reactions were, one, there's got to be a labor dispute somewhere in here. This has got to do with workers' rights. And two, can we still make fun of Hilaria Baldwin?
How do you say what is the word cucumber?
How do you say prop
in
gun?
English? Yeah.
Live ammunition?
In English, ¿cómo se dice liability?
¿Cómo se dice pay your goddamn workers? Yeah, this isn't, I mean, obviously I feel terrible for Alec Baldwin. I really don't want to make fun of him, beyond what we just did, but like, it sucks.
But yeah, I mean, he's a producer on the show, so he's not responsible for the cost cutting of the show. My big takeaway was this happened within the week following, and I guess we're going to talk about this with our guests in a minute, but this is the week following the IATSE strike being called off, partly over some of these very same issues. So it's like, man, IATSE should have struck. The other thing that jumps out is that because they had a non-union crew and because they were cutting corners, they had a 24-year-old armorer. And, I'm not sure I would let a 24-year-old make me dinner, let alone like prepare heavy weaponry. Like, you know what I mean? Armorer.
No, I mean, I think like, I don't understand why there was live ammunition in that gun. And everyone's trying to be like, well, what happened? No. Negligence happened. It happens all the time in whatever job anyone has when people are overworked, underpaid, and complaints that are filed are not followed through with. It happens all the time. And so, so I mean, I guess I just feel like it doesn't come down to, well, they really need to get gun control in liberal Hollywood, which they do. We can't even get gun control in fucking Hollywood, my God. But it's more than that, right? It's a universal labor issue. People being put in harm's way. You think about pilots who are flying on, less than 8 hours of sleep. Like that, those kinds of issues that put us all in danger. And again, this is all because it's supposedly prestigious to work on a Western with Alec Baldwin in the middle of Santa Fe. I don't think so. Like,
I've actually
pay people more, take some more precautions.
I think I've actually been to that set. I know I've been there. Because my in-laws are in Santa Fe, so or in New Mexico. I spent a fair amount of time there. I think I've been there, and there's like a couple of these like old Western sets between Santa Fe and Albuquerque, like out in the desert, and you could like people go film there, and then you could like rent it out for cocktail parties, and be real and like be super really corny, fun. Yeah. And they
were they shooty?
No, you would but you just like dress up in the goofy outfit and then you stand around,
which is arguably what Baldwin was doing, and
arguably what Baldwin was doing.
No one should have gotten hurt. Well, like shout out to all the like crew members, people who've been, God, I know I have friends who actually have horror stories for working on set. Actually, a friend of mine had terrible heat stroke that left him partially paralyzed because he was out in a desert-like situation shooting, I think it was a music video, and he fucking passed out. He had a stroke, and he was in a coma for like a month. So anyway, this happens all the time. It is not glitz and glamour. It is exploitation. Let's move on. We got to bring in a man who knows a lot about exploitation. My God. We're going to talk all about the situation around the country with workers striking, rising up for their rights. Also, the post-pandemic economy. What should we know? Who should we believe? And how is this administration doing enough or not? This is The Sitch. And joining us for The Sitch, he published Left Business Observer, a newsletter on economics and politics from 1986 to 2013. He hosts Behind the News, a weekly radio show that you can get on all podcast apps. His book, Wall Street, is available free to download on his website, and his other books include State of the USA Atlas, After the Economy, and My Turn, in addition to a forthcoming book all about the ruling class. Please welcome Mr. Doug Henwood.
Hello, thanks for having me. Funnily, I saw Alec Baldwin at a labor conference at Yale, 1999, back when the AFL-CIO was trying to make friends with intellectuals and academics and artists, and it didn't last very long. But it was a pretty good conference, and Alec Baldwin sounded all the righteous notes about labor. He seemed like he was had his heart in the right place. So, interesting to think. This
is Kim Basinger era Alec Baldwin before Hilaria Baldwin spoiled him. I am for our listeners. I should say I am a regular listener of the Behind the News podcast. I think the interviews are great. So
thank you.
I hardly recommend that podcast to people.
Yeah,
thank you.
100%. And I guess, Doug, I wanted to ask you about so many things. So we kind of are traversing a lot of different areas, but let's just start with, we talked about Hollywood workers, IATSE. They may yet still vote on a strike. Who knows? But we've seen workers from Nabisco to John Deere walking off the job. Kellogg, exactly. Pretty much all your favorite snack foods are canceled, which is great because they're terrible for you anyway. And that's okay. That's solidarity. But why are we seeing this Striketober? What's happening around the country? And could this be the beginning of a resurgent movement?
Striketober, which immediately follows Antifagist. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, what's the cute name for September though?
Barricade Ember. And then soon, but the year ends with December break the chains of oppression.
Yeah,
I almost said it right.
Septembers of the ruling class. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
One can only hope. Well, it's really hard to say. I mean, we saw what seemed to be a strike wave last year. It didn't turn out to be much. We look at statistics. I would dearly love this to be the beginning of a period of labor militancy and an end to 40 years of torpor on the part of organized labor and maybe even unorganized labor. But we'll see. Who knows? It's a very, very strange period in the economy. Nothing makes any sense at this point. We still have a lot of people unemployed compared to what were before the pandemic hit. Yet wages are rising. Employers complain they can't hire people. There's shortages everywhere, particularly in some industries. The whole supply chain. We're always now hearing about the supply chain being broken. Everything is busted. At the same time, the amount of stimulus coming out of the government, fiscal stimulus, is enormous. The amount of free money coming out of the Federal Reserve, which has gone mostly into the financial markets, has been enormous. So you've got enormous fiscal and monetary stimulus. At the same time, there's still, we're still like 5 or 6 million jobs short of where we would be to get back to the pre-pandemic level. And it's not clear what's up, whether employers are not hiring, whether workers are staying off the job. There's a lot of stuff going all at once, and none of it makes any sense. None of the old metrics make any sense.
Does the fact that we let 750,000 people die through mismanagement of the pandemic have anything to do with the possibility of a national labor shortage?
Probably not. But that is a very grim statistic, and can make me cry if I think about it too much. But no, I don't really think it's that's not of mega economic significance, but it is really just a grotesque human tragedy.
Well, I mean, and I think that early on, when you had Larry Kudlow, praising how well the stock market was doing in early days of the pandemic, while
it's even doing better now.
Exactly,
it's
and tens
great,
of thousands. Yeah, and so we
700,000 dead next to a record high in the Dow.
Absolutely.
It's a
so
small price to pay.
Crass, right, and it's that crass reality of capitalism that actually we are so expendable to this machine and to the economy, a very narrow-minded understanding of what the economy is. But when you talk about the stimulus, I wanted to ask you, if you were to grade the United States, how have we done when it comes to actually supporting people through this time? I know unemployment benefits recently ran out. We know that PPP loans went to goddamn Jared Kushner got some, but all in all, I mean, especially folks in the comedy industry who are like, oh yeah, no, I would have done, people who are like, oh, my other job was waiting tables, which didn't exist for 6 months. It's been meant life and death, poverty, no poverty, food on the table, no food on the table, to have these stimulus checks and this unemployment. So I guess how would you grade us? And then do we still need it?
Well, of course, it was well short of perfection, but my God, it was really surprisingly civilized, surprisingly generous. The amount of aid supplied by the government in various ways, the stimulus checks, the expanded unemployment benefits, aid to state and local governments, all these things have been extremely important and very. For example, in the first part of the pandemic last year, between February and April, something like 22 million jobs disappeared. Yet personal income rose because the level of support was so generous that it more than offset the loss of wage income. And that continued. There's a second and third round of stimulus, and it enabled people to set aside an enormous amount of money. Like, not everyone, of course. A lot of people are really in terrible shape and barely getting by, but millions of people were able to put away money on a scale that just never happened before. The savings rate hit 20-25% for a little while last year. And I think that's one of the things that's been enabled people to remain picky about what kinds of jobs they're going to take. The employers are complaining it's really hard to hire people. A lot of controversy over that's true or not, who knows. But have you
heard about the Great Resignation?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to talk about next. But I think the fact that people do have some money in the bank, even the bottom half of the income distribution, according to Federal Reserve statistics, has about $4,000 more in their bank accounts than they did before the pandemic hit. Wow. Not a lot of money, but when these are people who normally don't have much in the bank at all. Sure. People in the middle have $10,000, $15,000 more than they used to. And so if you have that kind of cushion and a partner or a spouse who's working as well, you can say, I'm not going to take your fucking shitty job. And there seems to be some of that going around. And also, the quit rate is the highest it's ever been. The officials' numbers go back to about 2000, but you can sort of simulate them the previous years. We haven't seen people quitting their jobs in these kinds of numbers in 40 or 50 years, probably. And you remember, well, you don't remember, I do. But back in the 70s, there was that great hit, Take This Job and Shove It. That seems now like a bit of ancient history, but it's coming back. There are a lot of people taking that attitude again. It's just remarkable to watch. And it shows you that any kind of generosity in government support can really change the balance of class forces, which is why the American ruling class doesn't want to give people a dime. They don't want them to expect anything. They don't want the slightest level of support so they can tell the boss to go fuck himself. And a lot of people who don't normally have go fuck yourself money have some right now, and it's an amazing thing to watch.
So I love the idea that go fuck yourself money is like
$4,000.
It's also like an economic indicator. Like, I'm used to, think about the business pages, and they're like these very sober, analysts. And
the index of leading indicators rose 0.2%.
Right. But they're over and the bottom 40% of the income distribution appears to now have go fuck yourself money. And that is raising alarm in the financial sector.
Well, it can't be allowed to continue. But on the other hand, the financial sector is so rolling in cash. The Federal Reserve pumped out trillions of dollars of free money, which mostly went into the financial markets. It's created just this incredible bull market in stocks. It created a incredible bull market in housing. And weirdly, the housing bubble this time around is mostly a thing of the upper brackets. People at the low end, there's no subprime lending going on at all. It's all people who are pretty well off, who don't necessarily need to borrow a lot of mortgage money. But that's where all the action is right now. So the upper class is just rolling in money. Corporate America is rolling in money. It's not spending it on hiring people or investing in anything. It's been shoveling out money to its shareholders and paying the lowest corporate tax rates in history. Their pet senators like Manchin and Sinema are preventing any return even to the pre-Trump levels of corporate taxation, which were the lowest in history until now. So these people are very lightly taxed, and they're really rolling in it yet, and they don't want that to stop.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that topic specifically? Do you think that is there a section of the ruling class that is worried about that treating the economy like that kind of fire sale, and that it will cause the kind of instability that Francesca was talking about at the top of the show? Or are they all just trying to get as much out as they can as quickly as possible? Are people worried about it causing instability?
My main thesis about this rotten ruling class that we contend with is they just are so drunk on money and really short-term maximization of money that they can't think in the long term. They're not like the ruling class in the mid-20th century, which had some discipline and some foresight about creating a kind of structure that would sustain their rule. It was not like they were humane and decent, but they had some level of discipline and responsibility and thoughts about the future. This gang is just a bunch of looters. And that's the dominant ethic in a lot of the ruling class. We're seeing some concerns. The Federal Reserve, for all its problems, is a fairly serious institution that's not yet completely corrupt. They do seem to be worried about issues about long-term systemic stability. They're showing some concern about climate, which a lot of bourgeois institutions are not showing much concern about. So there are corners of the elites that are concerned, but the bulk of them just want to let it rip right now. They don't give a shit, about the waters rising or forest burning down if there's money to be made.
Can I ask you more about the Great Resignation? You sort of mentioned that people have go fuck yourself money. And I think that's been a talking point. You're almost sort of agreeing with some of the right wingers who are like, well, it's because people got, a little bit of stimulus and we gave them, a small check that they're able to refuse work. And that is a bad thing. Can you implode that myth that it is a bad thing to be able to walk away from work? Is it okay that there are menial jobs that are not getting filled right now?
Well, first, in the unemployment insurance benefit issue, there's no evidence at all that actually stopped people from getting jobs. And if you look at the states that cut unemployment benefits early compared to those that didn't, they actually lagged in employment creation. A lot of them are really high COVID states, too, by coincidence.
Right.
But it's the more vaccinated states are actually creating more jobs now than less vaccinated ones. But the unemployment insurance that had almost very little effect on whether people were willing to take jobs. But on the other hand, the right is correct that if you give people money, it's often preferable to having a crappy job. Now, I think a lot of people really do want to work. They want to have a decent job. They want to feel like they're useful, that they're doing something that connects them to society, that they're producing something. An awful lot of people feel that way. But, if you're going to have to risk your life for minimum wage with no benefits, fuck that. Why should I do that? So they are correct that keeping, as the Brits say, people on their back foot is the best class relation that you could have. Alan Greenspan back in the 90s used to testify before Congress and say it quite openly. That's when the unemployment rate was about 4%. And he'd basically say, well, people are acting like the unemployment rate is 6 or 7%, and that's great. They're scared, and they're not getting an attitude. And, if you read the minutes of the Federal Reserve's policy setting meetings, they are very aware of what's going on in the state of labor and the consciousness of the working class. And they like people to be a little afraid. They don't want to be so afraid they're going to burn things down, but they want to be a little afraid and very grateful to have whatever job they can get. And I think first of all, there's the certainly we've been talking about this. The income supports from government stimulus programs and such have given people some fuck you money. But the other thing is, I think this brush with mass death has made people say, what is really important? Do I really need to go do some stupid job rather than enjoy my life and hang out with my kids or see my friends? I think this caused people to really reevaluate what's important. I was amazed to see Farhad Manjoo, a New York Times columnist, the other day, quoting Kathy Weeks, the scholar who has written books against work. She's an anti-work, comes out of anti-work Marxism, basically.
Okay.
And Manjoo quoted her in this column in which he said he really admired the way people were trying to wrest control of their lives back from the maw of capitalist production or something like that. This is a New York Times columnist writing like that.
Wow.
He's often quite good. But this really took me by surprise that that kind of consciousness is really penetrating elite levels. What is the point of running a hedge fund? I mean, you can make lots and lots of money, but you're miserable, alienated, and often hurting people in your work. And I think if people are stepping back and saying, what is this all about? And that's certainly the last thing the capitalist class wants to see people doing. But, from my point of view, it's great development.
One of the things that's so exciting for me about Striketober is the leader of the flight attendants, Sarah Nelson, has said that, talked about the idea that solidarity is contagious. That it doesn't, people see workers walking out and then they get ideas. So in my union, we probably have 4 strikes in the pipeline, in the next month or two that we're in the process of organizing.
What's your union?
I work for the Service Employees International Union, Local 10 to 1. We're mostly local government workers across Northern California. So mostly public sector and publicly funded nonprofits. And so school districts, county court workers, municipal court workers, health clinics, private, nonprofit colleges, that kind of stuff. And people have felt like they sacrificed. They were asked to, show up and be essential workers on the front lines through the pandemic. And there's just it's not even necessarily about a specific clearly defined demand. It's just the members that I talk to have this level of fury about what they've been asked to put up with for the last year and a half. And, and they want, they're going back to the slow grind of misery and austerity politics in the public sector from before the pandemic doesn't seem like an acceptable solution.
Well, elites have been pissing on the working class, both in purely material terms, but even in terms of in discursive terms as well, for 40 some years. And they've always pissed on the working class, but the stream has been intensified over the last 40 years, and it does seem like something.
Talk about a leading indicator.
Yes. Fuck you money and don't piss on me. I
think that all makes sense.
A crisis point.
Yeah, there was a psychic break, I think. And I also think that we've conceived, as we should, of the economy a little differently, right? And understanding that we shouldn't just live to work, and the economy shouldn't take precedent over literally everything, especially when your life is on the line. The
economy is supposed to provide us with the goods and services we need to live. Food, rent, shelter, rather, not rent, food, shelter, and not rent for the landlord. And I think people are just saying, the essentials of life are so much more important than serving our capitalist masters. And the problem is, there's this American ideology of self-reliance. Any notions of solidarity have been really undermined over the last 40 years or so. All the institutions of working class solidarity have been gradually destroyed. And so it's really hard to rebuild all that stuff from scratch. And there's a certain spontaneous consciousness developing among people that, let's stick together and fight the boss. But it's really hard to make that shift out of this profound disorganization and this internalized ideology that's all up to you. Any notion of politics or solidarity as a way to improve your life has just been largely discredited. And it'd be great to see that coming back into fashion, but it's not easy to revive something that seems so dead.
Also, everyone, I think, especially the right, sort of trains its viewers, its followers to sort of imagine that everyone's an economist, and not only an economist, but like a millionaire and an economist. So it's like, well, the economy must have growth and it must be this and it must be that. And it's like, none of you guys know what you're talking about, and you're all poor. like you. So I do want to ask you, how, when you think about wealth, it seems like in this last year and a half, like, yes, it is concentrated very much so at the top. I mean, I actually don't know if inequality has gotten worse or not, but it seems like the government programs, the stimulus money is the only thing that's prevented inequality from getting just completely out of control.
Unusually for the last.
I have the stat handy. The combined wealth of billionaires went up 55% during the pandemic.
Yeah, I was going to say that while the very bottom and middle of the distribution have been doing somewhat better because of the stimulus stuff, the people at the very top have been doing really, really, really much better because the financial markets basically have just been getting richer and richer, and then you have all these GameStop things like that where people are trying to get involved in that racket, but it's not going to work for them. It's working for the elites very well though.
So I think it's important to understand, like, when we talk about growth and when you hear GDP and when you hear, like, okay, all this wealth being created, to understand that that does not represent you, your community, your family, your well-being at all. It is growth for the sake of a very, very select few that never trickles down. So, I mean, I think that there's this, like, our economy is constantly set up against these barometers like GDP, like the stock market, like unemployment, which is, I know, even just a fraction of the whole picture in and of itself too, even though it's supposed to be representative of working people. It's only people who are actively searching for jobs. And we know especially women have in droves left the workforce under the pandemic and following it.
Yeah, well, women, have all these care responsibilities. Men did a bit more, it seems, over the last year and a half, but nowhere near as much as women have been doing, and as they always do, but they have to do more and more of it. When GDP grows, it doesn't really necessarily mean much of anything. It all depends upon how it's distributed. If it goes into wages and public spending and humane pursuits, okay, good. But if a building burns down because of climate change and then gets rebuilt, and that adds to GDP, that's not necessarily very good. While a shrinking GDP is good for almost no one, a rising GDP isn't necessarily going to be good for the masses.
Mm.
I wanted to sort of follow on that, like part of why I was excited to have you on is, like, so much of how we think about the economy is sort of like it just defaults to this very sort of free market neoliberal perspective. And I feel like including me, like a lot of people on the left sort of don't have the tools to think about the economy in a different way. And like in California, the public sector budget is pretty good, partly because of inequality. Like we have enough rich people that we can tax the rich people. And so that's sort of, when we talk about stimulating the economy, a lot of it is like, let's let rich people make some more money and then we can tax some of the crumbs and redistribute that into social programs. And is that accurate? Do you have a sense of like what a vision of economic growth or economic development would look like that wasn't based on letting rich people get richer and then trying to, transfer some of that through taxes?
We're similar in New York City. We are like many cities. We have a lot of poor people, but we also have a lot of rich people, and we're very concerned that they went away and may not come back. And so we have to make sure we're going to put out the welcome mat to get the rich people back from the Hudson Valley and the Hamptons, just so they can fund our basic services. But if you look back, it was capitalist America, but back in the 50s and 60s, rich people paid more taxes. The distribution of income and wealth was just nowhere near as lopsided as it is. And that was certainly a generally more humane way to run things. But as for what a better economy would look like, we need really, I think, and it's hard to imagine how we can get there from here, or what the institutional arrangements would look like to make this happen. But this is what I want to think about, is more about quality and less about quantity. and enjoying our lives and having good, nutritious food and safe and affordable housing and healthcare that is not a site of profit and exploitation and misery, but it actually takes care of people. Those are the principles we want to organize on. It's really, really hard to get there because everything that we do is organized around the principle of profit maximization. And any human need that is satisfied is just a side effect of being able to make some capitalist richer. It would take an awful lot of revolutionary transformation to change that. But it's encouraging that people seem to be more open to thinking about these things than they did 5 years ago. And one of the reasons that elites are very concerned about the Biden spending plans, regardless of the content in themselves, is that they move in a different direction. They change the nature of what we talk about, and they raise expectations among people. People start getting, for the last 2 or 3 months, we've been getting a $250 check in the mail because we have a kid. And if they start sending out child allowances, if they start sending us more generous unemployment benefits, if we start getting stimulus payments when times get tough, people say, hey, this is pretty good. Can we do more of this? And elites realize that you give an inch, people are going to want to take a yard, and that must be stopped.
The rich have not been defeated till they're running for their lives. Agree, disagree, Doug?
I think that's a great principle. Yes,
I think that for sure. No, and that's why Republicans are super scared, and obviously corporate Democrats and others, not just Cinema and Manchin, are scared of what this Build Back Better Act could have. Right? It's like,
well, I think Cinema and Manchin are like the taking the hit publicly for a lot of senators who don't want to step forward and take the heat. I mean, Cinema seems to enjoy it, and Manchin, both in different ways, but they seem to like this fuck things up position that they're in.
I mean, it's just crazy.
But there's a lot of support for their position.
Yes, and you talked about the child tax credit that you both are receiving right now. It is insane to me that Democrats, that Biden isn't saying every single day that he can speak, because some days are slower than others, that he's the one who's giving you this money, that he is like, and I don't even know, I don't think his name is on the check. I remember how Trump's name was on the first stimulus check, but it's like Biden needs to tout that out every single time. And, I think there's this whole like, oh, Democrats are screwed in 2022. I would agree with that, but only if they stop hiding the wins that they have delivered on. Only if they stop hiding all the things that they've actually delivered and done for the American people.
My Biden bucks came with aviators in the envelope, so I knew who it was.
Wow, Louis DeJoy took mine away.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy. Question for you, Doug. I know we have to move on to our final segment, but there's an idea that like we kind of can't do anything unless we rein in the 1%, like that we really need their tax money to fund our social programs. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? It feels like we're stuck. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they need to be eliminated as a political force. And I'm not sure that taxing rich people is an ongoing source of money. If you start taxing, that money is going to disappear. So we didn't have billionaires in the United States, really, to speak of, until the Reagan tax cuts. And then it became possible to accumulate huge fortunes because they were so lightly taxed. So if you go back and look when Forbes magazine first did its 400 list of the richest people in the country, there were no billionaires, or maybe 1 or 2 billionaires on that. It was just a few $100 million. And now the poorest person on the Forbes 400 list has several $1 billion to his or her name. So it'd be great to tax that 1%. But I think the point of taxing them would be to tax them out of existence. I don't think they're an ongoing source of revenue, but it's a form of expropriation, which I think would be a great thing.
Love it. All right. Well, we have to leave this discussion there, but everyone needs to follow Doug Henwood, read his books. Wall Street is free for download on his website. Everybody needs to, listen to his podcast, obviously. Thank you so much for breaking that down for us, Doug. And we have one more segment. So will you stick around?
I think I need to run off, but thanks for having me. Good talking to you.
You have to scurry off into the darkness. All right, everybody. Follow Doug on Twitter, Doug Henwood, @DougHenwood. And thank you so much. Be very well. Take good care.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Doug is missing out. We got a good final segment coming up. It's a version of Sex Elect Overthrow. So I'm excited to see what you guys all think of the comments. But before we do, I'm going to read a couple comments. There we go. I can speak. On Trump's new social media platform, Truth Social, Tempoden918 says, total morons try grifting. That's TMTJ. Indeed. Try grifting. They've been trying grifting. We'll see if this one works. Charmed Chaos calls TMTJ a 1/4 Chan. I like that. 1/32 until we keep getting smaller and smaller and doesn't exist. On Alec Baldwin, Todd Roy, what's up, Todd? Says, there's no reason why a gun with the ability to shoot projectiles should be on the film set. Most guns are modified to not allow bullets. It's true. They have like some other thing that they shoot, or they can just be CG'd. Just do that. On the economy and Doug Henwood's interview, Sinful Solutions on YouTube says, here in Alabama, we somehow have record high employment, but also every business is struggling for employees. Both can't be true. That's true. Someone's lying. Someone is lying in Alabama. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. Tina Lulu Mac on YouTube says, inequality is worse than during the Gilded Age. Yeah. I think it's the top hats. I think if the 1% had to wear top hats, then it would be fine because we could see them in a crowd and just be like, get him. You know, it's like there was a reason they wore them, to identify them. Todd Roy again, I'm starting to think capitalism isn't perfect. Far from it. And Inhaxed on Twitch says, GDP treats cutting down the forest as pure profits with no costs. Totally. I don't know what does this forest do? Oh, well, money. I'll print money on it. That's what we do. Think about that, yo. That's crazy to think that we print money on trees.
Are you acting out slurping with a straw?
Yes. No, dude, it's the end of my roach.
Oh.
Bro, that's crazy. I'm so sorry. All right. Last segment, you guys. We're going to do this. It's Halloween almost. My costume is in the mail. Nato, what are you going as?
Going.
Yeah,
I'm not going.
You don't trick or treat?
No, no.
You don't have to hold your kids' hands as they walk to the door?
No,
thing?
My kids are finally aged out of trick or treating. One of them is has her own stilts. And so she would have costumes that would involve going out on stilts, which is a real crowd pleaser, particularly in our neighborhood. To see her trucking up and down the hills and going
on
up
a hill
in stilts is ridiculous. But our problem is that we tend to do super high concept. My wife and I buddy costumes where people one year
I do that too. But yes,
one year we went as Statler and Waldorf from the Muppet Show. And people were like, are both of you old NATO this year? Is that what this look is?
That's pretty obvious. Oh God, I don't even want to talk about what I've been. I'll just say that one year, the year of the election, 2016, I was the skeleton in Trump and Hillary's closet. So I was like a skeleton, but I wrote different things on my bones, like Stormy Daniels or, killing the Haitian economy and shit like that. And one guy came up to me and he was just like, I get it. I like it. And I was like, oh my God, this is why you don't do concept costumes.
Yep.
I don't do political costume concepts. Nerds will follow you around. Don't want to talk to you, bro. We're at a rave. Do drugs. Shut up. All right. But our final segment, instead of Sex Elect Overthrow, where we choose someone to sex, choose someone to elect, choose someone to overthrow.
You should make some Do Drugs Shut Up merch.
Yes. I should definitely make that. This is Resurrect, Mummify, Drive Steak. would you resurrect? Who would you mummify? And who would you drive a stake through their heart? 3 people who are dead, but might come alive. Roger Ailes, I'm so sorry. Roger Ailes of Fox News, the sort of Murdoch's right-hand man.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Epstein of Jeffrey Epstein fame, of Jeffrey Epstein Island fame, friend of Bill Gates and literally everybody. Or
weirdly, I don't know. Have I told you this? Like Jeffrey Epstein is 2 degrees removed from my family.
No, that's upsetting.
It is upsetting. Yeah.
Okay, that's in the bonus episode then.
Yeah.
Become a patron to hear how Nato was just like a hop, skip, and a jump away from giving Epstein a massage. I'm no kidding. I am joke.
Look,
all right. Or okay, Roger Ailes, Jeffrey Epstein, or the original daddy who would never give their child a hug, real estate magnate, Mr. Fred Trump. Fred Trump, the guy who, if he had only maybe raised his child right, this could have all been avoided. It would have been someone else. But who would you resurrect? Who would you mummify? And who would you drive a stake through their heart? I'll go first. Oh shit, I don't know who I would resurrect. Okay, you resurrect Fred Trump, kind of like a sort of Ghost from Christmas Future, where he gets to see how awful his son is and what he's done, and then he can finally like take his son aside and be like, you were just enough as you were, and I'm sorry I yelled at you the time you put a Lego in your nose at 3 years old, and I'm sorry I never taught you to wipe your booty properly or ride a bike, because that dude's got skid marks. The point is, Fred Trump can come back and actually be a real father to Donald Trump. And then it'll just sort of like domino effect. John Trump Jr. will also be raised right. Ivanka probably would not sit on her dad's lap. The whole thing. It would have been fine. So resurrect Fred. Mummify Jeffrey Epstein, because we still need to get to the bottom of that dude's death. So you got to mummify him, keep him intact. We need multiple coroners, need to rule this shit out, or we need to understand. Keep him there, sort of mummify him, also to scare the 1% and all the billionaires that went on his plane. Whether it was, God, Clinton, although he's not a billionaire, but everyone who went on his plane. Keep him there to scare people. And then I would say drive a stake right through Roger Ailes' double chin. Just get him. Bam. It's on his way to his heart. Kill that MFer. We do not need that guy's spirit back. I'm very scared of Roger Ailes. Like, in death, he scares me as much as he did in life. Just especially if he was like, come into my office, Gretchen. You know how he preyed on a bunch of the correspondence there. My God. Nato, sit farther back, buddy.
Okay, I'm back. So I would drive a stake through the heart of Fred Trump, because I feel like that might break the spell that the witch cast on him in Germany that made him into a Nazi racist, horrible person. That's right. I would mummify Roger Ailes, but not like Egyptian mummy where it's like all bandaged and gauze, but like mummy.
A jar?
No, like Guanajuato mummy. I don't know if you've seen.
What's the Guanajuato mummy? You got to freeze him?
No, this is so Mexican, but if you've been to Guanajuato, there's the soil is a certain kind of way that it mummifies just dead bodies in the ground.
Oh, shit.
So they were like, oh, our cemetery is filled with mummies. So then they just dug them up. And so there's a museum of the mummies, just like people they dug out of the ground, being like, check out our mummies. All these just random ass dead people.
Okay.
That were
Guanajuato mummy. And okay.
Dirt. And then
where do you keep him?
Just on a dais, so you could be like, everybody, that's gross. And then I would resurrect Epstein because he has fucking stories to tell. Like I want him to be resurrected and then fucking put under oath. I want him to get to like do what's it called? StoryCorps, where he like goes and sits in a booth and gets to tell his story. Like
he does the moth.
Yeah, like, can you imagine the Jeffrey Epstein This American Life? You know what I mean? Like, so
I think that is the correct answer. Jeffrey Epstein definitely was too evil to die, and somehow that's actually a thing.
To die with like that much information still in him.
Yes. You're right. We need to resurrect that fool. That is great. You guys, this has been the Bitchuation Room. Thank you so much, Nato Green. Everybody, follow Mr. Nato Green on Twitter at Nato Green and on Instagram at Mr. Nato Green. And also, everybody, he's got 2 comedy albums out. You guys
I
can
have 2 comedy albums out. The best way to support me is to get them on Bandcamp. And I have a live show coming up Saturday the 6th. I'm doing a show at our old stomping grounds, the Verdi Club, with the great Liz Winstead.
Yes.
Co-creator of the Daily Show.
And friend of the show. Hell yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God. Nato and I used to run a show at the Verdi Club. Shout out to them. That's very exciting. Guys, go out and see Nato in the flesh. And be well, Nato. Take care.
Good night.
Don't get into any more Karen fights.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay. He's going to do his best. And you guys, there is more show coming up because, and I didn't tease this early enough, because this is a Halloween episode. In fact, we're not going to be doing a show on the 31st because that is Halloween and I want everyone to eat as much candy as they can and then puke it all up. So we're going to be doing a show on the 2nd of November. That's a Tuesday. So remember, we won't do a show on Sunday. We'll do a show on Tuesday. We'll post about it. So don't you worry. But that means this is our Halloween show. And we got a bonus bish coming up. It's just going to be me and me alone with you. And we're talking about demons and ghosts. Demons and ghosts, oh my. Who believes in them and why? It turns out there's a bit of a political difference between those who believe in demons and ghosts and those who do not. There's a new poll, and I want to get into all of that. And I want to understand whether you guys believe in demons and ghosts, and I'll tell you my stories. Oh, yeah. I got stories. But first, before we get the F out of here, you guys, thank you so much for becoming patrons. Thank you for your super chats and for subscribing on Twitch. This is the fart song. Yeah. Hell yeah. Okay, thank you to Farhad R for becoming a patron at $10 or more. To Sage J for upping your pledge. Thank you so much, Sage. To the big tippers, Joseph L. Thank you. Thank you for Twitch subs. Tris Kelly 000. Funkin' for Fun, Stanley 1953, and Nhaxed, Bucket Butt, Willie Gus, and also the Super Chats. Thank you, Matt Gates on a whiteboard Bronco, Kimberly McNaught, Farrell Jane, and Zane the Magic Puffer Dragon. Super appreciate you all. And hey, why don't I just throw in all the people that support the show? Thank you to Becca Rufer, to Max Inhoff, to Ellie Hoffman, and to Alexandra Ornes. You guys are wonderful. We stream every Sunday, 5/8 Eastern on YouTube and Twitch, and you can listen as a podcast. We will be back on November 2nd. That is a Tuesday evening. And remember, guys, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it. See you next time.